Hello artists, and welcome to day 120 of the epic journey. I'm Dalene FM, and today we're having a look at Sanguine drawing. Today as artists we're able to buy Sanguine in pencil form. Sometimes it is Sanguine coloured pastel and sometimes it's the actual Sanguine clay. But either way, the results that you get are very similar to the old masters' way of drawing with Sanguine clay. Back in the old masters' day, they would actually use a lump of Sanguine clay that they would wet, and it would be therefore quite pliable. They would roll it into sticks, roll it into a lump with a pointed edge, and they might even have put it into a cylindrical shape that they could sharpen, much like we do today with pencils. But like I say, today we just go out and buy ourselves a Sanguine pencil. The results of Sanguine drawing are absolutely beautiful because you get that stunning red effect on it. In fact, the name Sanguine comes from the colour of dry blood, believe it or not, as in sanguinate. It's pretty macabre, but that's where the name comes from. But it produces beautiful drawings, so what the name actually means is neither here nor there. To start off with the Sanguine drawing, I just did what one would normally do for any other drawing and plotted out my shape and got pretty accurate with plotting it out. And then you're working with the tones like you would with any other medium, working from your darks to your lights. Now you'll notice on this video I'm drawing onto a sort of almost yellow ochreish card or stock. I'm drawing on the back of the stock because I like to have as fine a tooth as possible, and the back of the stock was a finer tooth than the front of the stock. But that's purely my own preference, and as it wasn't a completely tooth-free. It still had quite a lot of tooth. What I found with the hallmark of Sanguine is that it tends to fill the tooth of the stock really quickly. It doesn't take a lot of pressure. The pencil that I'm drawing with here is actual Sanguine clay. It's not a Sanguine coloured pastel. And I found that it handles a little differently to pastel itself. It takes very, very little pressure to get it onto the paper. It wears down very quickly. In fact, I went through probably about half a pencil in doing this drawing. So, yeah, you go through a lot of Sanguine if you're using an actual Sanguine pencil. The technique is nothing special. It's as per any other technique. What I have done here in this drawing is I've used a little bit of Sanguine coloured pastel as well. I used an actual pastel or a Conti stick, if I remember correctly, because it was slightly darker than the Sanguine pencil. I wanted an ever so slightly darker value for the deeper values, and that's the one drawback of a Sanguine pencil, is that the deeper values isn't very deep, so you don't get a huge variety or a huge scale of tone from your lightest to your darkest. So to combat that, I used a Sanguine Conti or Sanguine pastel in the darker areas, the very, very darker areas. It's slightly more red than the Sanguine pencil that I was using, so I thought it would be nicer for the slightly deeper, darker areas. And then I went and used a chalk for the very highlighted areas right at the end. So the idea of working on the coloured stock is very similar to the way that you would work if you worked with charcoal onto white paper, but before you started drawing you would colour your charcoal paper to a mid-tone grey, so that you work with charcoal for your very darkest values and then chalk for your very lightest values. And the same applies here, working on coloured paper, or alternatively grating Sanguine onto your paper and colouring your paper in a very light Sanguine finish before you start actually helps you in a lot of ways, that your mid-tone values are already taken care of. So you're drawing your deeper values and you're drawing your lighter values. You're drawing the two opposite ends of the scale. It does make your drawing of your white areas a lot more effective because they really pop out of the color. But the technique is not anything different. You know, it's the same way that you would draw anything else. What I found in the bigger areas of this drawing that I was doing was that I was able to get my finger and rub the Sanguine into the tooth of the paper, whereas in the smaller areas, of course, I didn't get my finger involved because it was too big. But if you remember, cast your mind back to when we were working with getting smooth skin tones on pencil drawings, what I could have done, and I chose not to, but what I could have done in this drawing is I could have taken that's a leaf out of that particular lesson as well, and got a paintbrush involved. Because if you get a paintbrush that is relatively stiff, not too soft a bristle, and you use your paintbrush to work your Sanguine or your pencil or your charcoal into the tooth of the paper, then you can create a similar effect than what you would be doing with your finger on a larger area. I chose not to do that in this particular case for no particular reason. So it depends entirely on your choices as an artist and your preference and whether or not you want the tooth to be visible. The only other thing that I did that may be slightly different is I took a little bit of charcoal and put it into the very, very deeper value areas of the eyes and the mouth. Now, it was a very, very small amount of charcoal. I just touched it very lightly and then went over it again with my Sanguine pastel or Conti. I could have used a dark sepia pencil to do this. I didn't have one at the time, so I just used charcoal, but it probably would be a better idea to use a sepia, or particularly a dark sepia pencil, to get in there, because the color values will be a lot deeper but still have that sort of reddish look to it. Artists, if you've never tried Sanguine pencil, I strongly recommend that you do so. It's a beautiful, beautiful medium to use, and it does seem to almost psychologically put you in touch with the old masters. It feels as if you're getting back to basics in a lot of ways. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to draw. It feels good, and the results are stunning. I also want to just mention quickly that the model that I'm drawing here is my youngest daughter Siobhan, and that the photograph was taken by Tracy Zettler, a very good photographer that provides me with quite a lot of the photography that I use. Tracy and I often go out on photo shoots, the two of us together, and she will often give me her photographs that she's taken to work from. So I just want to give Tracy a little plug. Tracy, Tracey, Zettler, Zettler. Look her up. Her work is beautiful. So artists, thank you very much for joining me on day 120 of the epic journey for this little almost demonstration, not really a tutorial, on Sanguine drawing. And have great fun doing your Sanguine drawings, and don't forget to post them and let me have a look and see what you're doing. It'll be quite exciting. Please will you like and share and spread this around the internet, and if you're not already following the epic journey on Facebook, for those of you who are viewing it on other channels, please go to Facebook and hook up with the epic journey to follow daily tutorials. Thanks again for joining me, folks. Bye. That's what you want to do.